I'm Elex Michaelson. This week, the issue is acquittal.
Bullshit. He has betrayed our national security, and he will do so again.
Adam Schiff is a vicious, horrible person.
Lead House impeachment manager Adam Schiff standing by to talk with us. Plus,
we should all be disappointed.
Disappointment after the Iowa mess. Could that be replicated here in California? California's top elections official, Secretary of State Elex Padilla, is here. Also with us, Variety's Elizabeth Wagmeister and Ms. Movie Phone Grae Drake talk about the politics of entertainment on this Oscars week. The Issue Is starts right now.
Broadcasting across California, California's only statewide political show. You're watching The Issue Is.
And welcome to The Issue Is. I'm Elex Michaelson, and yes, by the way, we are trying out the beard. It's been another historic week, the acquittal of President Trump. Joining us now is the lead House impeachment manager, the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff of Burbank. Congressman, welcome back to The Issue Is.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Congressman, history is often written by the winners. How do you think history will write the story of the impeachment trial of Donald Trump?
Well, I said as much during the trial. History will be very unkind to him and will be unkind to those that stood with him and refused to do their constitutional duty. I think Mitt Romney, however, will have a cherished place in history as someone that had the moral courage to stand up and do what's right. And I would say also certain Democratic senators who showed great courage, like Joe Manchin and Doug Jones, among others. So there are some profiles in courage here that history will be kind to, but the decision by senators not to have a real trial or a fair trial, not to allow witnesses and evidence, and then to say, nonetheless, the House proved its case, but we refuse to convict, will not reflect well on them.
But you mentioned Mitt Romney. When Mitt Romney gave that speech, what went through your mind having made that case? And were you surprised?
I was surprised, and what went through my mind is, I had said in my close, is there a single one among you who will be the David that stood up to Goliath? Because even a single person of courage can change history. I didn't know whether there would be such a person. It turns out that person was Mitt Romney, and that this was the nominee, Republican nominee for president in the last cycle before Donald Trump. That he would have the courage to do it, be the first in history to vote to convict and remove a president of their own party, was an extraordinary act of, I think, of faith and courage. And what's more, to me, I talked about at the end of the trial how the founders presumed that we would have sufficient virtue for self-governance. And I think that's exactly what Mitt Romney showed, and it gives me a lot of optimism coming out of this trial.
President Trump doesn't like what Mitt Romney did, and he doesn't like you very much either. Here's what President Trump said about you this week.
Adam Schiff is a vicious, horrible person.
So he described you in the two words as vicious and horrible. What are two words you would use to describe President Trump?
Well, I don't know, but I will say this, it's his habit, and there must be a pathology to it, to project onto others his own lack of morality. And I think that's what you see here when he attacks others for being mean or vicious. That's his characteristic. And, and it really drags the presidency down. I think it pulls the country down. We've never had someone so debase their office by engaging in these kind of personal attacks and rhetoric. But he only diminishes himself. And for me, it's nothing new. I'm used to his taunts. They've been going on for over 3 years now.
So what are your two words for President Trump?
Well, I don't know that I have two words, but I would say start acting like a president, put the country first, but at the same time, he is who he is. And I think we have seen enough to know that's just not his character. He doesn't have the kind of character we want in a president of the United States. You never really know how important character is in the highest office in the land until you have someone without it. And now we're seeing that in spades.
You believe that President Trump should be removed from office today. But after this trial, he's been acquitted. He's admitted no wrongdoing. His fundraising is up. His poll numbers are up. Is it possible that impeachment actually made it more likely that he will not only be president for the rest of this year, but for the next 4 years?
I don't think so, but frankly, the political calculus of whether impeachment would help or hurt in 2020 never was a question for me. It's not something that I was preoccupied with or really thought I should even try to answer. We had a constitutional duty to do. The president committed high crimes and misdemeanors. Even Republican senators that couldn't bring themselves to show the kind of courage Mitt Romney did acknowledged that we had proved him guilty. So we did our constitutional duty. And I do think that we performed an important task in holding this president accountable. And I think we exposed the president's scheme to the American people. So that both the public and the Congress can be vigilant as we go forward to the election. We can be vigilant for other efforts by this president to try to cheat.
So if he gets reelected after all this was all worth it?
Well, I think whether he gets reelected or not will depend on the strength of the Democratic candidate for president and our ability to turn out voters. If the Democrats turn out voters, then he is relegated to the dustbin of history.
One of the only Republicans that maybe was really actually listening to your case was Susan Collins, somebody you were potentially trying to win over. She's the moderate Republican senator from Maine. She said you made your case, and then she said this to CBS News, something she tried to walk back with Fox News. Take a look.
I believe that the president has learned from this case.
The president says he did nothing wrong. Why do you think he learned something?
He was impeached.
So why do you have that feeling that he has changed, that he learned a lesson?
Well, I may not be correct on that. It's more aspirational on my part.
What's the lesson you think President Trump took away from this? And do you think he's even more emboldened to do this again?
Well, I don't know what lesson he took away from it except aggrievement. That is his modus operandi. In the meandering press conference or whatever it was he held yesterday, he complained incessantly about how unfair the world is to Donald Trump, this man that was born rich and is now the president of the United States, but nonetheless feels like he's the world's biggest victim. I would only say in terms of Susan Collins, none of us who have watched the president over the last 3 years could have any reason to believe that he would be repentant, that he would acknowledge his own wrongdoing, that he would learn from this. He is who he is. Nothing matters to him except himself. And this is why he's dangerous.
But what does that mean? You got to be vigilant in Congress. You just tried to impeach him and you lost. And so if he does this again, which he says there's nothing wrong with doing it again, what happens to him?
Well, we have to do our best to prevent him from inviting foreign interference in our election, and prevent him from seeking to corrupt those elections with foreign help.
So how do you do that?
And there are ways that, well, we do that by watching vigilantly the intelligence about what foreign nations are doing, exposing what foreign nations are doing, exposing what the president is doing, and calling upon the American people to reject it.
So just a question about you, though. For a lot of our viewers can relate to, like, they have a big presentation at work, they're nervous, or they have to give a big speech. Some people can relate to being an athlete and being nervous before a game. What was it like for you as a man, as a citizen, as a lawyer, as a congressman, to go through this process, to be in front of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, to be the lead guy? What was this whole thing like for you?
Well, I certainly felt a great weight of history on my shoulders. I think all of us that were managers felt that way. The first time we walked onto the Senate floor carrying these articles of impeachment, something that's only happened 2 other times in the history of the country, you feel, a great sense of the moment. But it's like many other things. Once you're in that moment, once you begin your task, you start to forget about the fact that millions of people are watching around the country, or the significance of every argument that you make, and you just do your very best. And I'm really proud of the case that we put on. I think we put on the strongest possible case. I think we proved our case. But all of us, felt the immensity of the experience and what it meant for the country going forward. And we did so, I think, full in the knowledge that we would be treated well by history for standing up for the values that have always been at the heart of what America means.
Do you get any sort of break now? I mean, you've been going nonstop forever, it seems like. And if you do get a break, what do? Do you like binge watch The Bachelor? Do you play sports? Like what does a break look like for you?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked that question. It has been quite grueling, and the past couple of months more so than at any other time in my career in Congress. So I am looking forward to a break, a breather. There have been other times, though, I have to say, the last 2 years where I've thought, okay, now certainly I can get a breather, and it never seems to come. And given that this president is a habitual offender, I'm not sure how much longer of a break I'll get. But when I do get the opportunity, I love to go to the gym, I love to run, I like to go to the movies and dinner with my wife. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed after the trial sleeping in and not setting the alarm for the first time. That was just heaven. You tend to appreciate the little things when you're sensory deprived, but my favorite thing is still dinner or movie.
Well, and speaking of that, it's Oscar week back here at home. So we love to play music on this show. This week we're playing music from the Oscar-nominated songs. So we're playing for you, this is from Harriet. Cynthia Erivo sang this song. Do you have any favorite movies? Any Oscar favorites?
Well, I think this was too late for Oscar contention, but I got to say I saw The Gentleman about a week ago. It's fantastic. So highly recommend that to your viewers, The Gentleman.
I'm amazed you got a movie in the last couple of weeks. That's impressive. Congressman Adam Schiff, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it. And great to have you on The Issue Is.
Thanks, Alex.
Up next, we're talking about that mess in Iowa this week and how that might be prevented here in California. The top election official in California, Secretary of State Elex Padilla, is with us when we come back. This week, the Iowa caucus was simply a mess. Democrats now want to recanvass the vote. So could all this happen here? This week, we invited the top election official in California in studio to discuss voting in the Golden State.
Elections are much more inclusive of people.
California Secretary of State Elex Padilla joins us to react to chaos at the Iowa caucus, days of confusion and lack of results. When you were watching that, what went through your mind?
Oh my gosh, I can anticipate the questions now. How do we make sure that what happened in Iowa doesn't happen in California? So I have some good news.
Padilla says there's a big difference between Iowa's caucus system and California's election system.
Among the differences, caucuses are run by the political party. Our elections are run by election officials at the state and the county level.
Iowa Democrats relied on a faulty app for reporting data.
We don't use apps in California for casting ballots, for counting ballots, or for reporting results.
A record high 20.5 million Californians are now registered to vote, 3 million more than in 2016.
I'm expecting not just record registration, but record turnout because the interest is there, and now there's multiple opportunities to be able to vote. In person, by mail, vote early, vote once, but vote early.
Voting by mail has already started here. This year, you no longer need a stamp to return your ballot. Also new, much like an Amazon package, you can track your ballot's whereabouts now at where'smyballot.sosca.gov. New in 15 counties, voting centers are opening, so you can vote in person early.
But no longer are you tethered to just the polling place closest to where you live. On election day, vote centers begin to open 11 days before the election.
Important to know if you're a no-party preference voter, you can request a ballot to vote in the American Independent, Democrat, and Libertarian primaries, but not the Republican primary.
Contact your county or do it in person when you show up.
Padilla says for the first time ever in a presidential race, there will be same-day registration at polling places. You can find all the info at registertovote.ca.gov. It has literally never been easier to vote in this state than it is right now.
All the tools there for how to register, verifying your registration status, finding your polling place, early voting information, voting by mail, how to vote for president, all in one location.
Our thanks to Secretary Padilla. No excuse, go vote. We continue with Oscar-nominated songs. This is from Toy Story 4. I Can't Let You Throw Yourself Away, which I know is about Buzz and Woody, but also could be about voting integrity, right? Probably not, but okay. Up next, we talk entertainment. Elizabeth Wagmeister, Grae Drake here. Stay with us.
제시카 외동딸 일리노이 시카고 거선배는 김치모 그는 이사촌.
That right there is how I feel when politicians refuse to answer my questions. Those clips, of course, are for some of the Oscar Best Picture nominees on this Oscar week. Let's talk about the politics of entertainment, of course, one of California's most important industries. Our panel this week, two of my personal favorites. Elizabeth Wagmeister is here. She is a senior correspondent for Variety. She's currently in the court every day covering the Harvey Weinstein trial. She previously co-hosted Page 6 TV. Grae Drake is known as Ms. Movie Phone. She's well known for her celebrity interviews and movie reviews. We won't say the name of her previous employer, but I will say that Grae herself is 100% certified fresh. Grae, welcome. And my tie and your hair are matching.
I noticed that synergy, and I really appreciated it.
I should move. I should let you two sit next to each other.
Exactly.
This is good. Good coordination.
Exactly. All right. Well, welcome, guys. Let's talk about the movie industry as a whole, because to me, the big story of this past year was the growth of streaming and how that has changed the way that all of us see movies. What do you think?
You know, I think you're absolutely right, Alex, but I think the culmination of the year in entertainment, which really ends with the Oscars, is not going to be indicative of that. I think Netflix, you know, of course they have the most nominations, 24 nominations, but I don't think they're going to walk away with many awards. Now, there could be many different reasons for that, and is it really a loss? Not really. I mean, you go in with 24 nominations, that's a huge win in of itself, and Netflix, they spent a ton of money on just their whole campaign for award season. For other studios, if they spent that much money and then didn't win, it would be a big problem. But Netflix, they're spending over $17 billion on content in 2020. Wow. This is like a rounding error for them to spend maybe upwards of $100 million just on Oscar campaigning.
I mean, that's really changed the entire business model. It's really made a huge difference in California business.
It has. I mean, and it'll continue to do that because Netflix and all these other streamers have figured out there was a huge hole in the movie industry where certain movies weren't getting made, certain stories weren't being told. And right now, thank goodness, we're focusing on the fact that these things need to get out there because audiences love watching them. Right. So everybody's running scared. Right. And I think it's great. But you know, what's interesting is that I read a study from as recently as 2018 that said that there's actually a different correlation between movie watching in theaters and streaming, which is that if you attend movies in the theater, you watch more movies in streaming and more content. So it's not actually as much of a war as you might think.
And another thing that's happening now, Grae, is that people's attention spans are so short, right? So you have The Irishman on the one hand, which is like a 5.5-hour movie. No, it's like 3.5-hour movie, right? Which a lot of people started on Netflix and then didn't finish. And then you have something else happening, like Quibi, which is going to be a big new company in the next year or two, started by Jeffrey Katzenberg and Matt Wigman, which is going to be 10-minute movies.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm sorry, I stopped listening to your question halfway through because of my own attention span. It's only going to keep going like this, and that's why everyone has to be able to course correct better than they have been already, because they need to make different content, more interesting content, and that means breaking rules as far as how long is a TV show, how long is a clip that we're watching, how long is a film. Like, let's go at least back to Roger Corman rules, where no movie should be longer than 90 minutes. Let's just return to that.
At the end of the day, when you have good content and a new idea, that I hate to use this word, but when you disrupt, and when you're a disruptor, that's going to make people stop and pay attention. Right. I mean, look at Parasite. Everybody's talking about it. Right. That did something different.
A Korean film, and people are actually reading, at least on the screen. Yeah. Well, we've got more to talk about, and we also want to continue to play some of the Oscar-nominated songs. So we bring you this from Frozen 2. I mean, clearly this was my favorite movie of the year. We continue to encourage you to search for The Issue Is wherever you stream podcasts. Please subscribe. Go to theissueisshow.com. You can find our podcast there. The Issue Is at foxtv.com. Send us an email. And we have a special podcast extra this week featuring Grae and Elizabeth talking even more about the Oscars. When we come back, some scoops and predictions from these two. Stay with us. More of The Issue Is. And as we go to break, more Disney fun.
I believe that this is your favorite.
A little bit like
it
me.
is.
Why not?
Who knows deep down I'm not where I'm meant to be.
That's Diane Warren's 11th Oscar nomination for this collaboration with Chrissy Metz called Breakthrough. Back with our Oscar Week panel, Grae Drake, also known as Ms. Movie Phone, and Elizabeth Wagmeister here from Variety. So we've got a new game. This is called The Issue Should Be. This is one movie that you've seen, or a TV show, something you've seen that maybe a lot of other people haven't seen that people should see.
The issue should be Honey Boy, which is Shia LaBeouf's film that's so personal. It shocked me, and it made him a lot more understandable as a figure, because prior to this, I was not a gigantic fan of him, the person. And now I feel like I get it.
I saw it at a screening with him. I was blown away.
Okay, now for me, the issue should be a TV show, actually.
Okay.
But we were talking about Netflix, so something on Netflix. I recently just watched the Aaron Hernandez docuseries, and I think everybody should watch it, even if you know the story. When you see all these details compiled into one, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. To me, the issue should be a documentary called Love Antosha about Anton Yelchin, which was really, really beautifully done. Should have been nominated, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, now the issue will be. These are predictions of who's going to win on Oscar night, even though this is going to air after the awards in some places. So we'll see if you were right or you were wrong. Elizabeth, we'll start with you. Who's going to win Oscar night? Best Picture.
Best Picture. I am saying 1917. You know, I think this is a film that came out to great reviews, has been doing extremely well at the box office, and it came out late in award season, so it's top of mind for voters.
I think it'll be 1917 for the exact same reasons. Also, everybody agrees it's good. But I would love it if Parasite won. Oh, see Parasite, it's amazing.
And you know, if that happened, at least our industry would be very happy.
Yeah.
They wouldn't see it as a huge snub that 1917 didn't win. People would be very excited that a different type of film won.
Parasite would have a much larger cheers in the room if it won than 1917, which is like
a welcome
old,
surprise.
white, boring, and British. But also amazing.
Great.
Amazing as well. Okay, I think the winner for the best original song is going to be Elton John. I'm Gonna Love Me Again from Rocket Man. So we end with that this week. Next week, our guests include Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger and Secretary of Housing Ben Carson. It's going to be a very similar conversation to what we just had with Grae and Elizabeth. Have a great week. Thanks for watching The Issue Is.
I'm going to talk to them about Toy Story.
Yeah.